to share. It's been a very powerful 24 hours for me. And I'm not going to bore you all with why it's been so powerful because it's irrelevant. But when we all go through a transforming conversation, a powerful obstacle, a powerful moment in our life, see, we all have a default emotion. We all have a default way of being. And I've learned years ago that in that space, stick with the basics. Today, yes, there's a lot of information that we have here. There's a lot to learn. But I'm going to challenge you today moving forward to never ever forget the basics. The basics of being an entrepreneur. More importantly, the basics of being a leader. I have the privilege of having conversations with new leaders as they emerge, and over the last week I've had the chance to speak with 2 or 3 brand new L1 leaders. And I had a conversation with a really incredible, you know who you are, I'm not going to mention your name because I didn't get your permission, but he was asking me about what's some of the basics that you adhere to when you went from Home Depot to being an entrepreneur. And it boiled down to something very simple. Something changed. It's how I saw myself. And I'll say that again. It's how I saw myself. So many of you all have heard the cows and the rhinos story, and I was talking with him, and I assumed that he knew the story. I'm going to briefly go through it again, so you kind of understand some basics with regard to how an entrepreneur, how a leader truly sees themselves. And there's a lot of versions to this story, but here's the basics. And see, I used to be a cow, but then I decided to be a rhino instead. And the story goes, simply put, it goes like this. There's this pasture, and it's clearly defined by fence. It's what I call the comfort zone. And inside this pasture land, this clearly defined little area, is a herd of cows. Well, in the middle of this herd, there's a creature that's different. It's got thick skin, it's got a horn on its nose, and it's not comfortable being there. Yes, there's grass on the ground. But as the rhino as this creature raises his head, you and I both know it's a rhino, he raises his head, he looks over the fence into the distance, and he sees what I'll call the promised land. Now, there's no fences, there's an abundance of everything there, and a level of freedom that he's not experiencing in this confined pasture. And he says, that's where I'm going. And he looks around at the other cows, and the other cows are, well, don't do that. You're being provided for here. We have grass on the ground, and it's all good. But he says, no, I know I deserve more, and I want more, and I'm going. So he breaks through the fence. And he begins to take steady action between himself and the promised land. Now understand, between the promised land and this fence line, there's hills, there's valleys, there's arrows, there's naysayers, there's drama. But see, a rhino's equipped a little differently. A rhino's got thick skin. And if you'll see many pictures of rhinos, they don't have their heads turned left or right for the most part. They're straight ahead. They're just choosing to be something different. Now, in the spirit of keeping this nice and tight, after going through the arrows and continuing to go through the valleys and the mountains, and it finally reaches the promised land. He gets to the promised land and he stands there at the top of this little valley, or top of this little mountain there, and he looks back to the pasture that he came from. He can see it. And I always ask everybody I coach, as that rhino is looking back towards that pasture, what does he see? Now the common answer is, well, he sees a whole herd of cows. That's not what he heard. That's not what he saw. You know what that rhino saw? The rhino saw a bunch of rhinos conned into believing that they're cows. Ask yourself who you're really choosing to be and what you believe. You know, we talk about a success principle here about be, do, have. See, the 97%ers of the world are just the opposite. They do, have, do, be. If I only had more luck, if I only had more money, if I only had a better set of circumstances, then I could do the things and then I would be the person. But see, 3%ers understand in the law of reversibility, if something works one way, it works the other way as well. So they choose to be the person today, be the rhino today. They're going to do what rhinos do, but they can't, and then they can't help but have what rhinos have. Today I want to discuss briefly 5 things, possibilities of who you choose to be today. Be forgiving. Probably the one person you deserve to forgive the most is yourself. Let it go. Quit being so hard on yourself. Be honest. For the first time in your life, be honest. I know that was a liberating process for myself. Thirdly, be in integrity. Integrity is nothing more than do what you say you were going to do by when you said you were going to do it. It's that simple. 4, be self-expressed. And 5, be loving. Now, you can't learn these things, but you can be trained these things. And I'm going to make a statement here that may seem profound, but it's to the core. Don't sell out living a transformed life to be liked. Because no matter how hard you try, not everybody's going to like you. And say, and a lot of us were, and maybe some of us are still showing up this way. But you want to be honest? I know in the space of me transforming from being a Home Depot employee to being a real entrepreneur, I said this to myself when I was completely honest. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. But I'll tell you what I am. I have been. In the past, I was asleep. It's time to wake up. Who do you choose to be today? My stand moving forward today, I keep one on my desk at all times. I'm holding it right now. Today, be the rhino. Let your words, let your thoughts, and let your actions be that person with a thick skin who can understand and take the arrows and the naysayers that are out there, but take the actions required to be the rhino. And today, do something good and do something very positive for somebody. But do it in the knowing there's absolutely no way they could ever repay you.